And through the day today, we're going to be focusing also on India's mission evacuation. Our government is ramping up efforts to bring back stranded Indian citizens from Ukraine. Now, the first batch of evacuees from Ukraine reached Romania via the Suceava border crossing. The Indian embassy in Romania will facilitate travel to Bucharest for their onward journey to India. Meanwhile, the Indian Air Force has put its fleet of C-17 and IL-76 transport aircraft on standby for evacuating citizens from Ukraine. Indian Air Force is geared up for any requirements of evacuation of citizens from Ukraine. Prime Minister Modi is also going to be chairing a very important meet on that front today. This is a meeting with the Cabinet Committee on Security on India's mission evacuation. What needs to be done to ensure that roughly about 16,000 Indian nationals who are in Ukraine are brought back safely.
I'm at the quiet airport of Bucharest in Romania. At the moment, still and quiet, but very soon it'll be heaving with 3 to 4 buses full of people of Indian origin who have traveled from Ukraine to the Romanian borders and will be coming in buses to Bucharest airport to board a flight to Mumbai and to Delhi. Air India flight to Mumbai has been announced. It leaves Bucharest at time 9 a.m. in the morning, and we will be here to greet, meet and talk to all the people coming from Ukraine across to Romania and then to Bucharest and hopefully to Mumbai and Delhi safely. Levina Tandon for India Today from Bucharest, Romania.
We were all stuck in Chernovitzy and we were very helpless. Thank you to the Indian government and the Indian embassy present in Kyiv. They have arranged us flights from Romania, and right now we are all in the border of Romania. They're helping us get evacuated. Thank you for your help.
So as the world condemns President Putin's attack on Ukraine, India clearly is walking a very, very tight rope amid diplomatic ties between Russia and the United States. Here's a detailed report on the dilemma that India faces, on which side to pick and why right now we're firmly sitting on the fence.
India is one of your major defense partners. Is India fully in sync with the United States on Russia?
We're in consultation with India today. We haven't resolved that completely.
This one reply from US President Joe Biden at his press meet on Thursday stood out.
Let me be clear. These are totally defensive moves on our part.
The US expects India, a strategic partner, to condemn Russian invasion of Ukraine. But for India, both the US and Russia are vital defense and trade allies. It can't pick sides. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has spoken to Russian President Vladimir Putin and has urged him to hold dialogue and stop the military operation. The immediate focus is safe evacuation of Indian citizens from Ukraine.
We've also asked our embassies, our ambassadors in the countries neighboring Ukraine, and I mentioned these, Poland, Romania, Slovakia and Hungary, to send teams of their officers to the border areas with Ukraine to facilitate the exit of Indian nationals from Ukraine, to permit them to come into their countries, so where they can be safely evacuated back to India.
The first real test for New Delhi is when the UN Security Council votes, where both Washington and Moscow will expect support. For India, the challenges are many. Russia is a key supplier of weapons and spares. It is also India's key diplomatic link to Afghanistan and Central Asia. On the other hand, India is part of quadrilateral alliance formed up to contain China, and that completes the tricky triangle.
India has been very careful so far. Its statements in the UN Security Council have been very good, very balanced. The statements basically are saying that the security interests of all parties should be protected.
New Delhi is under immense pressure to take a stand. The West is unhappy, and Russia certainly does not want India to take sides. India had taken a very cautious approach even in the year 2014 when Russia annexed Crimea. The situation is a little different today, but a few days from now, India will have to decide whether if it is going to side with any nation or will continue to be a neutral force. In New Delhi, Geeta Mohan for India Today.
Now, there are, of course, several countries who've taken a very, very tough stand against Russia. But what that's meant, essentially, it's translated to a slew of sanctions on Russia and nothing more. The United States, Japan, Australia, Taiwan, I'm naming just a few here, they've all gone ahead and slapped back-to-back sanctions for this decision of Putin to invade. One ally, however, China, continues to back Russia, saying it, and I quote, understands Moscow's concerns over security. Here's how the world is reacting to Putin's decision of going to war.
Sorry to keep you waiting.
The West hits back at Russia. The retaliation has come in the form of economic sanctions. The US and its allies will not allow Russian banks or oligarchs to raise funds from their markets.
Putin chose this war, and now he and his country will bear the consequences.
US President Joe Biden, while announcing the sanctions, made one thing clear: America will not join the war in Ukraine.
Our forces are not and will not be engaged in the conflict with Russia in Ukraine, but to defend our NATO allies and reassure those allies in the East. As I made crystal clear, the United States will defend every inch of NATO territory with the full force of American power.
America's allies, the UK, the European Union, Taiwan, Australia and Japan have hit out at Moscow.
We will introduce new trade restrictions and stringent export controls similar to those that they in the US are implementing. We will bring forward new legislation to ban the export of all dual-use items to Russia.
Support for Moscow comes from another neighbor, China. Beijing has so far refused to call Russia's attack on Ukraine an invasion. The Chinese president has urged Putin to resolve the dispute through negotiations. While President Putin of Russia remains unfazed, many in his country are questioning his actions. As Russian forces continued its onslaught in Ukraine, Muscovites took to the streets with banners saying no to war. The chorus against Putin's war was picked up across many cities worldwide. Protesters staged demonstrations in Paris, Tokyo, Jerusalem and Sydney, and in several American cities like Los Angeles and New York. But the Putin war machine marches on. Bureau Report, India Today.
The Russian offensive against Ukraine has now been raging on for over 40 hours and counting. Missile attacks, shellings have forced Ukrainian citizens to go now into anti-attack shelters and bunkers that have been put up in many cities.
There is nothing more jarring than the sound of air raid sirens. When the hooter goes off, it's a desperate dash to safety. The bunker has become home to many. Not many are lucky to escape the barrage of artillery fire by Russian forces. 2 days into the war, cities that were flourishing a week ago lie ravaged. Bodies are piling up, buildings reduced to debris. Those who are fleeing the war heading to the nearest border. But for most, the only refuge is air raid shelters and hastily constructed bunkers. The stocked-up supplies are running thin. All that Ukrainians can hope for is that somehow the shelling ceases.
It's hard, but I'm holding on. We have been sleeping, but we woke up to an explosion at 4:20 a.m. near our house. An aerial rocket was shot down. Yes, and a nearby house caught fire. And there were many victims. And we were waiting until 7 a.m. in our apartment, in the corridor, in the bathroom, until the end of curfew. So we can come here. I work here.
In a matter of 2 days, life has turned upside down for the people here. Safety now is to be huddled up in a dimly lit underground cavern and hoping that one day this nightmare will end.
People have been sitting here from 5 o'clock in the morning, right after these loud explosions have been heard in the city center. So not all of them really want to talk or show their faces because the situation now is really tense and everybody understands that the worst probably is yet to come.
With Maria from the conflict zone Ukraine, India Today.
Now, there are some conversations that have emerged with citizens, with Ukrainians, that really makes you sink into the fact that we are at war. Al Jazeera's Andrew Simmons spoke to a young boy who's taking shelter from Russian attacks in Kiev. And in a very, very brave reply that we're just going to play out for you, this young boy says he's hopeful for a bright future, even though he's scared right now that his country is at war.
How are you feeling towards this? Are you hopeful?
Well, I'm scared and I'm also hopeful that we'll have a bright future. It's very terrifying, but we're coping, and I'm sure that in about a few days it should be fine now. It should settle a little bit.
Very optimistic, articulate young